Welcome to the Quick Talk Podcast with Joshua Latimer, where we discuss business, life, family, faith, struggle, fire, pain, and ultimately winning.
It's time to take massive action. Look, I can't work harder on your life or business than you do. It's ultimately all on you.
You know, God created all the food the birds would ever need, but he doesn't put it in their nest. You've got to go get it.
10 out of 10 people die. So how about doing something today that actually matters while you still can? All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Quick Talk Podcast. Josh here. How the heck are you? I hope you're having a phenomenal week. You know, Howard Partridge always says phenomenal. All of his books are titled phenomenal. He says phenomenal. It is a powerful word. I'm feeling phenomenal right now. And I have a brand new friend on the line named Jason Schmidt. And I just met him. One of our listeners was just driving us crazy, saying, Josh, you've got to talk to Jason. He has this crazy story, and he's got this, couple $1 million, business in the landscaping industry, and he's doing all this amazing stuff. He's super humble and nice, but please get him on the show. And so I had my assistant, Jessica, track him down and harass him and force him to get on the call right now. And Jason, thank you for taking a few
You're
minutes.
welcome, man.
This isn't a normal thing for you, right? You don't do interviews?
No, I've never done it. It's an honor, though. It really is. I appreciate you thinking about it. So.
You're welcome. I mean, we have thousands of listeners from all over the world, and they need to hear stories like yours because it gives them perspective. They can kind of borrow confidence when they're having a hard time by listening to your story, which is really interesting. Without further ado, give us a little background on what you're doing today and what your background is and all that kind of stuff.
All right, cool. So I'll start with where we are today. We're a landscape design business. We're in Central Florida, so we cater to more of a high-end clientele. We didn't always cater to a high-end clientele, but we just kind of gravitated that way based on our the vision. So we started basically identifying who we would want to be our key client. And then so we started basically moving that direction. So we're a landscape design business. We also own a business that creates high-end woodwork, custom woodwork, pergolas, trellises, arbors, tack boxes for horse farms, just about anything that's made out of wood. Now, I'm not the builder. That's done through, I have a partner in that business. And then we're also a grower. So we grow trees, plants for our landscape designs, and that's a separate business, so that operates on its own, and that's primarily that's so that we can supply our landscape business with our own plants. Going back when we first started, I was in my early 20s, and I got this bright idea that I could sell palm trees door to door. We were next to a retirement community, and you would see palm trees driving by on trucks. And so I bought a palm tree, threw it in the back of my 1994 Ford Ranger that was beat up, and I would literally go out and hustle, until I would sell it. And then I would drive back, get another one, and, I might sell 4 or 5 of these a week. And I
didn't even know this was a thing. I mean, I'm from Michigan, but buying palm trees and going door to door, that's a thing? Are you kidding me?
No, I don't think anyone really, that was just something I came up with. I mean, people do it now. I still see people do that once in a while. But it was just, I wanted to supplement my income. I was doing pest control at the time. And so I discovered, I said, man, I can make $100 per palm. So I'd go put 4 or 5 of these in a week after work, and I was making $400 or $500 a week doing this. And I go, this is nuts. So then I was able to give up my other job and start doing this full time. And it wasn't easy. I mean, sometimes you would buy palms, you couldn't sell them, and they would die. So then I remember, this is going to sound bad, but I remember crying on the side of the road because I had these trees in there. That's all the money I had. I was married at the time. I'm married now, but I was married then, just got married. And, coming back with no money and dead trees,
That, man,
it's funny. It makes me laugh when I think about it now.
I know you don't listen to the show, and you kind of got caught off guard by this entire interview process, but one of the quotes I always say is that everybody sees the wine, but no one sees the crushing of the grapes. And you mentioned in our pre-interview, like, your mentality, because you said you barely finished high school, you didn't go to college, but you were talking about how when you would see large companies back then, right, with the mindset you had then, there was a tendency to just think, they got lucky, or that's been in their family for 50 years, or, I can have that, right? I mean, but when you were on the side of the road crying with dead palm trees, which really means your money just lit on fire and it was gone now. How did you get from that mindset to having a multi-million-dollar service company now?
My wife, because I had limited sight back then, and she can see it from another perspective. She could actually see my capability, and she could see it. She goes, I know you have it. And so my wife would tell me, yes, you do. You've got this. You can do it. I don't know if I would have continued without her. I may have just gone back to working, a normal job. Nothing wrong with that, but I think I may have just gone back to that. And over the years, in those really hard spots, because every time we grow and we get to certain parts of this mountain, it's, there's going to be a challenge. And so she would encourage me through, and she still does. She encourages me through those challenges. We're in the middle of one right now. So, we're in this little valley. It's a good thing. We're growing, and we don't know where we're going in a way. We're exploring, and we're kind of pioneers right now in this area of our business. But she's the one that helps me to know, we can do this. We've got this. And so
that is such an unfair advantage for people like me and you. It's like, is there something more powerful than an encouraging, supportive wife that will push you? I mean, is there a motivator stronger than that? I mean, I don't think there is. I don't know. For a man.
And in fact, it can be a demotivator. I have a buddy of mine. This is a really sad story, but he's a good friend of mine, and he has a fairly large, he turns a lot of money in his lawn mowing business, this maintenance business. But now his wife, hope to God he never hears this podcast, but his wife seems to do the opposite. And that kind of, it's sad because, it can be exponential when two can put 1,000, one can put 1,000 flight, two can put 10,000. So it's exponential with that other person, what you're capable of doing. I don't know if you've ever heard that, about Belgian draft horses. One can pull about, I think it's 8,000 pounds. Two can pull 24,000 pounds. Wow. So not 16. And then when you have three, and the number keeps getting larger and larger, it's exponential. And it's because they're in sync together. And so that's the way I always look at it. With my wife, we've been able to go way further than I could have obviously done it on my own.
What an incredible analogy! I've never heard that. That's, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I don't know. My mind is blown right now. That is an incredible thing. The math of that, just the way that, iron sharpens iron, right? There's a scripture that says, a man sharpens each other, like through friction, but through focused unity and teamwork, especially in a marriage, you can do anything, man. I mean, I would climb Mount Everest and swim across the ocean for my wife. Like, everything I do really is to impress her at the end of the day, if we're honest with you, right? So it is a powerful demotivator when you don't have that support. And I know a lot of people listening to this have a situation like that. But let's flip it a little bit and speak to the importance of you investing in your marriage the right way and not just demanding that your wife blindly support every horrible thing you do. Like, there's balance there, right? I mean, have you guys ever had, I don't know, if you struggled with maybe working too much or getting out of whack or balance? So what was that like as you were growing your business?
So you just kind of nailed it. When you think of, I'm in my room right now, and I'm looking at a ton of books that are business and self-improving, related. And in there, I'm looking at a few of them that are marriage books. And so what a lot of guys do, especially in our world, if they are wanting to get better, they're ferocious readers. They'll read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They'll read, and in fact, I'm looking at all these books and these titles, The Millionaire Mind, And yet they won't invest in a marriage book or books on raising children, or, so I see that sometimes where, well, I had to do that. I was doing the same thing. I was growing my business. It'd be like just working out one part of your body and not the other. If you just did bicep curls on one arm and you didn't do it on the other. And so what I noticed, I said, well, okay, I'm getting stronger in this area. I'm becoming more acute. I'm learning more about business and systems and management. But at the same time, I wasn't investing in my kids or my wife. And so you had to bring it into balance. And I had to say, okay, what's really important? And I've been on a quest here in the last couple of years to, I don't like using the word balance because I think they're equally important. And what I mean by that, like for right now, I began to focus on my physical body because I believe that it affects everything. It helps me to express my spirit better and my soul better if my body is in alignment. And so what I had to do is cut out certain things in my diet, exercise more. I do CrossFit 6 days a week. I didn't always do this. I also take walks every day. I do 4 to 5 miles a day. And I noticed that I was becoming clearer, and I was able to become a better dad, better husband, and a better business leader. And I needed that component. So I could have just focused on the business side. I could have worked, like I have some buddies of mine that work 7 days a week. They have multi-million dollar landscape businesses, but they're atrophied or atrophied, whatever you call that. Mm-hmm. So if you can imagine their body, it's this really strong arm and the rest of it is weak and falling apart. And so I said, it doesn't make sense. And I said, I need to work on all of it. And I believe that the body is this vehicle that carries your spirit, carries your soul, your mind, and all that. And so why not invest in that? So I started doing that. I started eating better. I quit, and this probably sounds crazy, but I stopped drinking all alcohol. I had to, because I knew that I wasn't cognizant. I wasn't using everything. And so I started working on that. And then I started working on being a very present and aware father and husband. And so I've had to put things into perspective, and I've actually backed out of the business somewhat. So I actually work a very lax schedule, and I empower the other guys. And so my role now is the vision guy. So in fact, our manager, one of our managers, calls me the chief dreamer executive. So my job is really to keep a dream in front of these guys, and that's what I've been very good at. I'm not good at building these walls or putting trees in or any of that stuff. There are guys on our team that are just really talented. Kevin is my father-in-law. He works for us, and he's very talented in what he does. I cannot relate to the guys like he does. But I empower Kevin, and I say, okay, I need you to run with this vision. Allow me to dream, and then you take this vision, instill it in them, distill it, whatever. And so that's what I've been pretty good at, is being able to look long range, down range, and say, what does life look like 10 years from now? A lot of guys just kind of see the tree, and they don't step back to see the forest. And they're running 100 miles an hour with their windshield kind of covered. And when you're able to empower your guys and have someone help you run, you can step back now and you can look and go, oh my God, we've been going in the wrong direction, or it helps you kind of align yourself.
The ironic thing is that when you really do start building a team, which people avoid forever for a lot of reasons because of perfectionism, you'll find out that the people on your team are better than you ever were at the thing that you replace yourself with. And you're right, man. It's we get caught up in this inertia of just being very one-dimensional, having a lot of fear. I think a lot of it's rooted in fear and scarcity. Like, I gotta work harder. I have to do it myself. I gotta get grocery money. But if we can't push pause and step back, then it's not going to work, or you're going to hit your head on a very low ceiling, which is where most people are. People that have companies like yours are in the top couple % of service companies. And when I talk to people like you, it's fascinating because the differences are heavily based in mindset. Really. It's not like you have a better sales script or something for your services compared to the other guy who's got a tiny company. It's not that. It's mental. It's mental. And so let's talk about, if you could, when you first started building a team. I know you're into systems, of course. Anybody that has a multi-million-dollar business has to understand and use and create systems. What was that like when you first started doing it? Did you have any pain and suffering with your first few employees?
Yeah, there was a lot of resistance because it's basically sissy stuff to them. So, we're in a construction business. So when you start telling a guy about a system and paperwork, man, there was a lot of resistance to it. And, they know me, Jason, as the guy who's just off the cuff, just willy-nilly, and then all of a sudden Jason's becoming somewhat corporate. This is their impression of me at that time. And they go, well, what do you mean systems? And it's hard because it to them it was like putting limitations. What do you mean we have to be here all at the same time every day instead of just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, totally. And not to interrupt, I want you to keep going, but it's harder when you have been operating, shooting from the hip, and then you try to pivot that team into a structured environment. But when after you get through that, the new people coming in, that's all they ever know, so it's easier. But it's really hard to teach like an old dog, new tricks type of thing. I mean, was that your experience?
Yeah. So we've gone through, so this is two different teams. This is like the 2.0 version. We've had to go through two complete different teams to refine it, to get it down to, in fact, we're always refining. But the first team resisted it. We had to part ways with each person, and that was hard because that was 9 members at that time, and we had to part ways. And that sounds so crazy now. It made sense to me then. I said, you know what, the next team, when I saw this next team, they're going to understand these new systems. Now, it seems like in our business, the type of person that we were hiring at that time didn't like structure. They wanted to come in at their own time, and I guess that was the environment, or that's the way they grew up. And I don't know if that's with all construction, but our team now is amazing. I mean, they are there at 6:30 every day. It's just a part of our lifestyle. It's just a part of what we do now. So hopefully that answers that.
No, it does. It totally does. I wish you could have heard all these other episodes because we talk about things like this. And what I see people do wrong is they'll try to implement a system or a policy or something that's really good and valuable, but they get resistance. And instead of sticking through it or having the guts to rearrange their team to cut out the cancer or the negativity or whatever dissent is there, instead of having the guts to do that, which is very hard because you care about people, they just get frustrated. They make excuses and they tell themselves, oh, this doesn't work. It must have been easier for someone else. It's not easy. It takes time for it to become hard-baked into the culture of your company. You have to be a broken record, relentless, nonstop, forever and ever and ever, beating it into their head for a long time. And then eventually you wake up and you're like, holy smokes, like I have a freaking awesome company. My guys are amazing, right? I think that's awesome. And so how long have you had the company? When did you really start to make some dents in revenue and have some really big breakthroughs?
Well, we started in 2005, and I really just kind of coasted. I mean, like I said, that's the whole putting palm trees in and taking on a few jobs. When I really decided I said, I love this business. I really enjoy it. It was 2010. And, then from there, it was just this awesome climb. And which is really cool for us, there's just different benchmarks. And what I mean by that, in our industry, you can see beautiful landscapes and you can go, man, I want to design something like that and install something like that. It would be, like my brother-in-law's in pressure washing. You might see a commercial building and you might say, wow, I'd love to be able to do something like that. So what I did was I kept that in front of me. I said, my goal is to design a landscape like this, and that was the $50,000 mark. For some, that's not a lot, but for us back then, that was insane. And I remember keeping that vision in front of me. I would drive by those houses, and we weren't anything near that. We're talking $5,000, $6,000 landscapes, and I would go through those neighborhoods and look at those bigger homes, and I'd say one day we're going to do that. So I kept the vision in front of me all the time. In fact, I have on my iPad, I keep a vision board, and I still do that. I have pictures of mega landscapes, and now I have different numbers associated, different gross profit amounts, because you can do bigger jobs and not make anything. And so I had to understand that. But so that I just kept the vision in front of me, and I would say that's probably your biggest thing, is keep something tangible, something that you can see in front of you. In fact, in our kitchen, my wife and I have a vision board. She did it really beautiful, like a Pinterest style one. And it's things that are important for us, that are to keep certain things in front of us that we're already achieving, and the things that we want to achieve, where we want to be. And I look at it every single day. I've got them all memorized, and I look at them. In fact, I see them in my head now, and I see how I want my body to look, how I want our family to look, our home, our business, the freedom that I want. I've got pictures that identify with freedom. Being able to, for one, we want to spend or invest 3 months in the mountains in North Carolina. Last year, we were able to do that. We took I think it was a month and a week. And now, if you would have told me, back in 2010, hey, Jason, you're going to take an entire, I'm laughing now because it was just, there's no way. And back then, and if you came to me from a time machine and you said, hey, brother, you're gonna be in North Carolina for an entire month, and you're not even going to call the team, and nobody is even going to call you, and a truck is not going to break down, I would have laughed. I would have said that's impossible. That is absolutely impossible. Back in 2010, I worked every single day. I was the first one there, last one there. It just, to tell me something like that, it would have been like saying you're going to the moon. It was so absurd to say something like that to me. And then we got to experience it this last year. Back in September, we had the Hurricane Irma, and I just told my wife, I said, we're going to pack up and go. And we went up there for a whole month, rented a house, and team did not call me one time because, again, like I go back to empowering your team, the systems in place help you to do that. So you have to have someone govern that system. You can't do it with just systems alone, and you cannot do it with just a good person. You've got to have both of them, a system and then someone really good that can manage the system. And so the systems that we installed allowed us to leave and not have a truck blow up, not have someone die, not have something, and that was refreshing. That was awesome. And so our goal now is to be able to do it for 3 months. And that sounds kind of crazy, but that's our goal. And we said, okay, we want to be able to take the hot, for Florida, it's brutal down here, man. You take July, August, September, those are insanely hot months. And so we said, all right, we want to go up there or somewhere up north. And, so that's our goal. That goes back to that freedom goal.
Yeah. And I remember so clearly when I had left a job delivering pizza, and I lived in a trailer park, and I remember like pulling my hair out, telling my wife all passionately, if I can just find a way, if I can just find a way to make $500 a week. I was cleaning windows. That's how I started with my service company.
How funny is that?
It was like, if I
crazy.
can just do that, then everything will be amazing. It's fun, but I can also imagine hearing an interview like this back then, which I did not hear an interview like this back then. But if I could have, it would have lit me on fire, man. I mean, That is why getting people like you to share your story is so valuable, because I believe that it's possible to borrow other people's confidence. It's possible to borrow their authority for a little while. And a podcast like this reminds people that this is actually a thing. Even though it breaks your brain and you work 7 days a week and you're stressed out and you can't imagine having what Jason just described, you do know intellectually, listening to stories like this, that it's a thing, that it's possible, that you can keep that vision in front of you and keep moving, and it can happen. That it's just amazing. You're doing great, Jason. This is awesome. So tell me about your morning routine. You mentioned you're an early riser. Why am I not surprised? That's a trend with people that achieve a lot. What time do you get up, and what do you do every day?
All right, so I'm a little crazy about that part. I like routine. I'm kind of built that way. So I'm up at 4:30 every single day. It's not always easy, but I'm up at 4:30. You eventually get used to it. Your body, like today, I did not go to the gym this morning, and I told myself I'm going to allow myself to sleep in until 5. Well, what time do you think I still got up? I still got up at 4:30. So it just becomes routine. It just becomes automatic, and I could not sleep in. And so I'm very intentional about my routine. And what I mean by that is I'll kind of give you a breakdown. So the first thing I do is I actually go into my kitchen and I look at that vision board. So I go in there and I look at it and I go, what are the things that are important to me? And remember, this is 4:30, so I turn on the coffee machine and then I stare at that vision board and I go, all right, this is why I do this. This is why I'm up. And then I actually go out in the garage and I have a row machine, like a Concept 2 row machine. And I learned that from, I think the guy's name is Jim Quick. He's on YouTube. And he said basically you fire the brain up by just getting some kind of physical movement going. And it gets the blood moving. And I go on my row machine for maybe 3 minutes, and then I'll do some kettlebell swings for about a minute, some push-ups. Then I go and get my coffee, and then I go in there and I read. So I read the same book every day. It's called Proverbs Prayer, and I love it because this book is built for a guy like me. It's very basic. It's practical. It's understandable. Basically, it's the proverb from the Bible, and then the guy has a prayer with it. But the way the guy writes the prayer, in fact, his name is John Mason, and I've given out, I bet you I've given out 30 copies of this thing, and because it's been so important to me. But it's basic stuff, and I call it like a dude book, meaning for a guy who's for a guy, anybody really, this book will help you if you apply it. You read the prayer, and then the proverb, and then you read the prayer. And it helps you to put things in perspective. It's just the way the guy writes. It just makes sense. So I do that. And then I will get coffee for my wife. This is making me sound like I'm some type of superhero, but I get coffee for her. That's just my thing. I wrote it down on a goal. And then I get her toast, get her going. And that's at 5:30. So she's up, no matter what, she's up at 5:30 because I'm getting her up at 5:30. She homeschools. So she needs some time in the morning for her just to be her, because she'll go into mom mode immediately at 7, and then she's homeschool. Oh man, she's awesome.
She's the one that has the real stress. I have 5 kids, by the way. How many do you have?
3, and then 1 on the way.
Oh man, congrats. Yeah,
it's
a lot to hold all this together. But you know what you're describing so far with your morning routine? You're describing a system. That's what it is.
You're right.
It's a system.
And it's the same thing every day. It doesn't change. Once in a while, I'll deviate from it. And if I do, I feel out of sync,
you feel
out
weird.
of orbit,
Yeah. Well, you know what most people do, which holds them back massively, is they wake up. They're not out of bed yet, but they grab their phone and they check their email or they check Facebook or they check something, and then they're immediately screwed. It's over because now there's an angry customer email or there's an issue or your feet didn't even hit the floor yet, and it's game over mentally for you. And it's important to protect your brain from that stuff until you do what you just said, which, I don't have to beat a dead horse, but I think that's amazing. So after you're at the 5:30, you're hanging out with your wife, you're being super husband guy, which is amazing. Do you go into the office at a certain time? Do you work from home?
I go to the I go 6. Well, I go to the CrossFit gym right down the street, and I'm there for an hour. And so I go there, do that whole thing, and then I'll usually either come back to the house. So we have an office on at the property, and then we also have the house here in our office. So basically 2 offices, I guess. And I'll either come back here or I'll go down there with the team and I'll meet with them in the morning, say good morning to everybody. And I make a point. So I go down there. My main thing is to make a point to say hi to every single person every day. That's the biggest thing, is to get out there and I grab their shoulder and I say thank you to each one of the guys. And just, that's my routine. It's what I do. And they know it. They know I'm going to do it today. They know I'm going to be there tomorrow to do it. It's just what I do. So it all depends on what I've got. I either will come back here and meet with my wife because she's my business partner in this, and we'll go over some things, or I'll go down there and meet with the team. So that would be a typical morning. And then it's going to sound really strange. Then I'm open for almost the entire rest of the day. And so they manage everything. I give them the benchmarks, and they have to hit certain targets. And then we do have to monitor those things. And so we've got an office person that she does awesome, and she monitors those. And then my wife and I monitor the P&Ls, make sure everything is in alignment. But really, I'm very hands off. I don't design anymore. They order everything. They do everything. Josh, I don't know. I don't really. It sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't to me, and it doesn't to the people of the show, because I have a lot. I mean, this is the goal. The goal isn't to be a slave to your business. It's not to own your own job. It's to have a system that serves you and your family. I always tell people, you're not what you do. Like, who you are is not what you do. That's just what you do. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it takes a lot of work to get there. But the key thing that I took away from what you just said was that you measure things. And so people don't pay attention to important metrics or KPIs in their business, key performance indicators, right?
Yeah.
How do you know if you're winning if you don't measure anything, right? So even if your company is really little, you should be measuring basic things like revenue. Am I on pace to hit the goal this week, this month, this quarter, this year? Margin. Is the work I'm doing profitable? Is the margin in my company today big enough to support another layer of like middle managers when we do scale? There's all these little things, and you do not have to be a rocket science. I didn't go to college. You didn't go to college. You can figure this stuff out, everybody. But how do you know if you're winning if you don't measure it, if you don't keep score, right?
That's right. Yeah, you start with QuickBooks. I mean, that was my main thing. I was just like everyone else. I did cash. I know that sounds bad, but we operated almost just a cash type business, and you have no clue what you're making. You can bid out a job, and it could be a loser. I mean, we've done that so many times. I don't even know how much money we've lost over the years. So now we have a system for that. Basically, we have production rates, where we have to know how long it takes to do a certain task, and that we build that into the estimate. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say we have to install a tree. We know that it's going to take a minimum of 1 hour to install that tree. So instead of lying to yourself and saying, you really want the job, or you're bidding it out against someone else, it helps you to stand back and say, man, this is exactly what I have in this project. I cannot lie to myself. I cannot tell myself, well, if I get the tree cheaper. No, that's your baseline. So you say, okay, what's my break even? And you have to have that metric. You have to. And so that's what our designers do. They have to break down and understand what actually is going into this project. I mean, from their commission, then we have an overhead variable that goes in there to where okay, you're eventually going to need tires on your truck. You're going to need diesel. You're going to need, all these things that you do to operate your business has to be paid for. I didn't understand that at one time. I had no clue what that even meant. And so once I began to understand that and go, God, I got to pay for these tires. I've got to build that in my estimate somehow. So then I would put a variable in there. So that's what we're working on now. Is we have now software that's helping us. But we had to actually put in the rates. So we have to actually measure how long will it take to do this. So I don't know if in your business you'd have to measure, okay, how long does it take to do a house like this, so you can accurately estimate that project. But QuickBooks helped us because it gives you a target. And you can say, okay, last year we did $1 million. We have to sell this much or produce this much to get to this next level. So you have to have those metrics. And then, you have to know what you're going to make on a project. You may have to say no to projects. I mean, we do it all the time. We'll bid something out. We did one the other day, and the guy nearest to us in the bid was $10,000 below us. And so when I broke down every cost and I go, there's no way the guy can do it unless he's going to give something up. There's just no way. And so we had to say no to the bid. Obviously, we had to say no to that. But it helps us to be confident and go, hey, you know what? We'll find another one that is worth it for us to do.
It's amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. You've added massive value, Jason. You've given of your time.
Thank you.
Super thankful. I'm happy to meet you. I'm pretty sure we're going to be best friends someday, so that's a good thing.
Thank you, Josh.
And listen, everybody, if you have feedback for Jason, how can they contact you? Do you want them to contact you?
Sure, yeah.
What do we do?
I'll give you, my email address is jslcares@gmail.com. So jslcares, CARES @gmail.com. Or you can go to thevillageslandscaping.com. And so those would be the two ways to get a hold of me. I'm not on well, actually I do have a Facebook, but I'm not on there. The office does that stuff. And I appreciate your time, Josh. Thank you, man.
No, I appreciate your time. It's somebody out there is going to pivot their entire trajectory of their life because they hear a story like this, and I'm not being melodramatic. That's how this works, man. It's powerful. We're grateful. Thank you so much. I can't wait to connect again in the future. God bless you.
You too, man. Thank you, brother.
Hey, thanks for hanging out, friends. And from all of us here at the Quick Talk Podcast team, we hope you loved today's show. We hope that you were inspired to become a doer and not just a listener. Apply what you've heard today in your own business and watch things change for the better. Lastly, remember that all the money in the world can't save your soul. Seek first the kingdom of God, my friends. We'll see you next time.
For more information about the Quick Talk Podcast or Joshua's other businesses, visit our website, quicktalkpodcast.com. Have a blessed day.